On the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
Bill Maher just went after Zohran Mamdani, and it's absolutely hilarious. The comedian and talk show host tore into Mamdani's far-left ideals, calling his New York win the best gift Republicans could ever ask for. Maher's breakdown of Mamdani's politics isn't just critical. It's brutal, razor-sharp, and laugh-out-loud funny. From start to finish, Maher delivers the kind of unfiltered commentary that makes both sides squirm, but you can't look away. You definitely don't want to miss this one, so let's dive right in.
Ideas, and again, this ugly streak, ugly streak of anti-Semitism.
Who's the most popular politician on the left?
AOC? I don't know.
One of, but who's Bernie is
Bernie, yeah.
Bernie is, I mean, he's not a capitalist,
No, he's not, and he's also not president.
But
never would be.
But neither is Mamdani.
Yeah. No, but he will, trust me, he will be featured in the campaign commercials.
But they're going to feature people. They boogeyman everybody.
Yeah, but you don't have to boogeyman him. He doesn't.
Maher's absolutely right. The Republicans don't need to invent a boogeyman out of Zohran Mamdani. He does that himself every time he opens his mouth. With Mamdani poised to win the New York mayoral race, critics argue that his victory would be a political gold mine for Republicans, giving them endless ammunition to claim the DNC is sliding toward full-blown socialism. Mamdani insists he's just a democratic socialist, but that label hardly reassures anyone outside his echo chamber. And Bill Maher isn't buying it for a second. To him, Mamdani embodies the kind of far-left idealism that might sound noble in theory, but, in practice, hands conservatives their best talking points on a silver platter.
It'd be horrible for a guy like you, who you spent your whole life talking about how government tries to do too much, which it does, and spends too much. And here you have Trump, who is the Republican, who is aggrandizing more power than anybody, as we just talked about. And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight-up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to?
On the surface, it all sounds utopian. The kind of feel-good rhetoric that easily wins hearts, headlines, and applause. But scratch just a little deeper, and that dream starts to look more like a nightmare. Mamdani's vision might thrill idealists hungry for change. Yet for those who've witnessed socialism fail in real time, it's a chilling déjà vu masquerading as progress.
20 years or so.
Wait.
Every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your change. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
Socialism has failed so many times that most people wouldn't touch its ideas with a 10-foot pole. Except, of course, for younger voters who still find its utopian promises irresistible. The flaw in socialism isn't just human greed, it's human nature itself. People need incentives to innovate, create, and push society forward. When competition disappears and everyone is rewarded equally, productivity dies, bureaucracy expands, and corruption festers. Soon, the very system designed to promote equality ends up breeding inefficiency and resentment. History has proven it time and again, when the state tries to control everything, it inevitably collapses under its own weight. Mamdani's policies, overflowing with free handouts and government control, may sound compassionate on paper but crumble in practice. Without economic freedom, progress stalls, and eventually, everyone suffers equally, just not in the way they hoped.
Yeah, when the post-war labor government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both. That's socialism.
Britain serves as a perfect cautionary tale. In the early 1900s, the nation flirted heavily with socialism, promising equal opportunities, fair wages, and a just distribution of wealth. It all sounded noble, even revolutionary, at the time. But within a few decades, the results were far from the utopia that had been promised. Industries that once thrived under private innovation were nationalized and suffocated by layers of bureaucracy. Productivity plummeted, inflation soared, and the economy slowed to a crawl. The so-called equality they championed ended up spreading poverty instead of prosperity. By the 1970s, Britain had earned the grim title of the sick man of Europe. It wasn't until Margaret Thatcher's free market reforms that the country finally began to recover and reclaim its strength.
We said beyond saying that we're going to a sanctuary city for LGBTQIA plus workers, beyond saying that we're going to establish an office of LGBTQIA plus affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million of funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding the federal government will pull out from local providers for that kind of work. And in this moment especially, we want to fight the Trump administration. We have to do so by fully funding our own services, taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers and corporations.
And this is exactly why Bill Maher fears that Zohran Mamdani could become the Democrats' undoing. Maher knows that when the party drifts too far left, it alienates the very moderates it needs to win. Many Americans supported Donald Trump as a backlash against what they perceived as the excesses of progressive ideology, particularly the controversial gender-affirming procedures involving minors. Yet Mamdani seems determined to reopen that wound, pledging to privately raise a staggering $65 million to fund such initiatives and doubling down on one of the most divisive issues in modern American politics. For Maher and other Democrats who still value reason over radicalism, Mamdani's agenda isn't just politically risky, it's catastrophic. It hands Republicans a ready-made narrative that the left has lost touch with common sense, morality, and the everyday American voter.
Attacked you personally and publicly like this.
He's not a socialist. He's a communist, okay? This is not socialist, man. This is a communist. I don't like to see a communist become mayor, I will tell you that. I call him my little communist. He's my little communist mayor. We should never be in a position where we're talking about communists. We're going to end up with a communist mayor. It's not unbelievable, my beautiful New York. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party.
Last time you were on this program, you were unequivocal in saying you do not like capitalism. But Trump, just in those remarks there, I counted, called you a communist 8 times. Are you?
No, I'm a democratic socialist. I've said that time and again.
There's no two ways about it, and no point beating around the bush. It isn't Donald Trump turning Zohran Mamdani into a boogeyman. Mamdani is doing that all by himself. He's proposed city-owned grocery stores and free public transportation, policies that lean heavily toward government control of the economy. While Mamdani insists he's just a democratic socialist, his rhetoric often echoes the language and ambitions of far-left movements. Even if his intentions sound noble, his ideas feed directly into the growing narrative that Democrats are inching towards socialism. In short, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, people are going to call it a duck.
Found is that this vision of a democratic socialism, it's one that often comes back to what Martin Luther King said decades ago. A vision of, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. Here in New York City, wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, 1 in 4 are in poverty. 500,000 kids go to sleep hungry every night. It's untenable to live with this kind of a divide. We have to actually have a politics.
Now, that's quite interesting when you take a closer look. Mamdani's rhetoric may sound fresh to some, but it's really just the same recycled talking points politicians have used for decades. They promise equality, fairness, and opportunity, using emotional appeals and selective statistics to spark hope. But once they're in power, the mask slips, and their true policies emerge. Policies that punish success, overregulate growth, and stifle ambition. America doesn't need that, and neither does New York. The nation has flourished under capitalism, driven by innovation, competition, and personal freedom, the very principles that built its prosperity in the first place. So why on earth would anyone think socialism will work here? If history is any guide, the answer is simple: it won't. And Maher, to his credit, understands that better than most.